Hi everybody, so I'm Nathan, and we're going to be talking about starting a game at a game jam and then ending up with a commercial release. So Pig Eat Ball is our current game, and the inspiration came from the Ouya Create Jam back in January 2013, and the idea was to have a local co-op game. And so this is back when Towerfall and Samurai Gun were just getting started and just looking interesting, and I wanted to try something like that, but not have a killing game, like where you're just killing other guys. I thought, let's do something different. So in this one, you have flying space pigs, and they get points in the front, so you eat balls in the front, but if you get attacked in the back and the tail, then you barf, and you lose balls. So you get smaller. So you're getting bigger and bigger as you eat the balls, and then there's barf, and it's cute. To back up, part of it also was inspired by Terry Cavanaugh's work on like VVV, and Super Hexagon, and just how rich they could take one single concept and build on that. So I wanted to stick with that, with like the eating, and to create something original and see how far we could take it. So this is a screenshot from the Create Jam version of the game, and it was nice and simple, and you fly around and you eat the balls. And then this is a more recent version where we finally got back to the art and fixed it up and added effects, and the barf is a lot more, it's pixely, but it's explicit. So the tough part when you go from a game jam game to a huge release that someone's actually going to pay for and not just play for a few minutes and think it's interesting is, for me, this was try to figure out, am I a strong enough designer to expand on a concept that someone's going to want to play for hours and actually spend money on? This one I wanted to take to the desktop. I'm kind of traditional, so I wanted to go with like a $10 indie game. So at that point, though, it had to have enough content in it to make it worth it, that someone's going to go out of their way rather than just think it's a mobile app or something like that that's free to play, but really spend money on it right at the start, or even with a demo. So we had to make a really big game at that point. Also, personally, I don't usually play single player, I don't buy multiplayer only games, so for me it needed to have a single player component. So like I'd see it, I think, oh, I'll play that with my friends, but if I'm going to buy it, I also want to be able to play it myself. So I wanted to have that in there as well. So how did we flesh it out? The first idea was, when you saw those 4 players, it was to have bots control the 3 other players. That was a mess, because what would happen is people would play it, and I had a lot of people trying it out, and they would always think it was okay, but it wasn't super compelling, and basically it was because when you see a bot in the game, you know a human's supposed to be playing that. And so it always feels like, I really just wish I had more people to play rather than I'm fighting bots all the time. So that's a little bit further along. We were starting to add more game modes to it and then fleshing out the graphics a little more. So then the second attempt was to flesh out a single player experience, but I was still hung up on trying to make this mix of 4-player work. I wanted it so that like it could be 1 player or up to 4, and anytime anybody else wanted to, you could have friends jump in. And it still was a mess. It still felt like the bot problem, where it wasn't compelling enough. But we did add this really cool world map, and it was this musical world map, and it was completely separate from the action. And so as you traveled around these little dots, they would play different music based on these octaves, and we had all these puzzles built around music. It made no sense at all with the rest of the game, but it was fun on its own. And when you went into these areas, that's when you played the action levels that we already had working. I think it was a cool game, and kind of concept, and we might use it another time or do something else with it. And I spent months on that, and so that was like really hard to scrap. And it's funny how it is, like when people tell you what's wrong, and it takes like multiple people to tell you that it's wrong, or like a really close confidant before you finally believe them. So anyway. At that point, we had to step back and think about, what was it about the game jam version that was so fun? And so if you're making not just our game, but any kind of game jam game, if the best part of the game jam version was you made a Mario game in 2 days, but it's still just Mario, maybe just move on. Just let it be. You know what I mean? You learned something and moved on. If it's just that you made it super fast, maybe that's not worth expanding into a big game. But, I mean, for us, I made sure I spent months taking it around to friends and gamers and lots of people we had in the mailing list and just confirming, asking them what was it they liked about it and finding out that it was worth focusing on. So for pig eat ball in particular, we have this suction mechanic, the pigs get bigger, and there's barfing. So there was multiple things I felt like we could take and actually make it into a full-sized game. So what finally worked was I gave up on this stupid multiplayer with the bots fighting each other, and single player was sort of mixed in there. What do they call that? Is that single player? It's like the mixed version. But anyway, I was trying to do that, and I finally went with full custom-made single-player levels that you play on your own, and now the party mode is completely separate. And there's specific levels for multiplayer and specific levels for single. It just took a while to get around to doing that. I just kept on sticking with it because I thought I just wanted to see if there's something new that we were going to find in the gameplay. So the main twist with the game for single was, as you eat in these single-player levels, you're always eating the balls, like in a Pac-Man game, but you get fatter and fatter and fatter. So at some point you'll get so fat, you'll get stuck in the maze, and the way to keep going is you actually have to barf, spew out some balls, through into the maze, squeeze through the little hole, and then suck up the barf again. So it's kind of gross, it's kind of silly, and it's different. And we ended up with a lot of really cool concepts from the game. We're still actually working on it. It doesn't come out until the fall. So now, for this kind of game, we wanted like a lot of actual content, a lot of actual levels, and they're all custom made. So like if you look at like a Spelunky game, that game's really neat, but it's all procedurally driven. But because this game kind of centered around these concepts of creating this slight kind of puzzles in the action with the main mechanics, I felt like it was the best to actually hand design all the mazes in the game, all the levels. And then to flesh out a full $10 game, in my mind it needed like a level editor, level sharing, and it's fun to just build the levels and show them to friends and try different things. And there's all kinds of different gameplay elements, like a RPG-like story and disguises, to make it feel like a full game and not just a quick thing you play for 10 minutes. So when you launch into something big like that, the best thing that you could do is to think through and know yourself as a designer. So what are you going to probably do when you spend a lot of time on it? Are you going to fall back into your old tendencies of, have you made games before? Has that worked for you before? So for me, I end up with too much absurdist kind of variety, and I still ended up with a lot of that on this game, but I've worked really hard to always bring it back to the main gameplay mechanic and to make it as deep as possible. Back to with the Terry Kavanaugh's work, to see if I can do something that good. And that's the best way to kind of look at your game jam game is, it should be like an elevator pitch of a mechanic. Like if you can take that and show somebody that and you say, I built it really fast, and they play it and they love it and it's interesting, maybe move on with it. If it's not that compelling, that's fine. You gain some experience and you move on. So a lot of us, we all know that independent developers have a lot of freedom, and we can market our game however we want. But a lot of the other times for us, there's so many options that exist out there, it can almost be paralyzing because you feel like you don't have the budget to try out all these different things or to get all the attention a certain way. Since Piggy Ball, the initial part of it was a local co-op game, we wanted to try something different, and there was a call for entries for the Alt.Control GDC show. And I started just thinking of different ways to create new controllers for our game, and like what would we be able to take to game shows like this one here, and just make it a special experience. And so the initial thought was, what if when you get attacked in the game, you get electrocuted? But my wife talked me out of that, so we didn't do that. But we ended up with butt rumbling. So in the game itself, you get attacked on the tail, and so I thought, well, what if when you get bumped on the tail, it's like your butt gets bumped in real life? So we have these massage pads, and we call them rump shakers. And let's see, I'm going to get a picture. there. So it's like you're sitting on this pad, and we got this string of lights around you just to light up also when it goes off. And it vibrates at your butt or your back or whatever. But like I was saying before, I love arcades in general, and it's fun to go to an arcade and to get a unique hardware experience. Something that's absurd. You would never have it at home, like giant controllers, or the entire system tilts and rotates around like that. So I like that idea that, I mean, big companies could do this too. Just something fun that you could take to a show that you're not going to experience anywhere else. Something that people are going to talk about afterwards when they go back home, that, oh yeah, it was a silly thing. I got to, play a 4-player game, and I was rumbling other people's butts with it. That was how the Destructoid article came out, was that the guy rumbled his boss's butt, and he thought that was hilarious. So how to rebuild them? So basically, let me see, I got the picture. Well, that's all the motors I cut out. So basically, an Xbox 360 controller you get from GameStop, they got little offset vibration motors in them. You snip out the motors, wire them together in series, and now bring out that wire. And that wire has a 5-volt signal. You hook it up to a relay switch, and the switch is now tripped by the rumble. So what would be rumbling motors are now hitting this switch. Then you do whatever you want with it. In our case, we spliced in the power to the back massager and left it plugged in, so it's always on. So it's always on, and the switch is blocking it. So when the rumble signal comes through, it goes on. So we just tell it to go on for a second, and then it just goes off. And then we got, let me go back. We got fancy with the lights or whatever. Just that helps people see, so other people can get excited about it, and they see, oh, like he got hit. That's really cool. And but you can actually take that concept to anything at that point. The funny part is, when you think about video games, they only output video and audio, and that's all that comes out of a video game, almost ever. But a rumble is the one thing that also comes out of a video game. So wouldn't it be cool if more interactivity, more movement or something could come out of the computer to do something else and open it up? And rumble is the one thing that's supported by a lot of libraries and hardware that people could do more with. So the boring part of taking a game jam game and going to commercial release is all the work. And so at that point, at least for us, this game's going to take almost about a year and 3/4. And so sticking with a project for that long, this takes a lot of discipline, a lot of organization. Stick with your to-do lists. You got to kill the feature creep. So that's the boring part, but it's the most serious part. It's the only part that's going to get it done. Otherwise, you're doomed to be stuck in limbo forever, where it's never getting finished. But it's and of course, like lots of other people have said, like the Meat Boy guys have said, you've got to have workable hours. You can't just seriously be in crunch time all the time. Maybe at the end or maybe for milestones, but you've really got to have workable hours. Otherwise, you'll kill yourself almost trying to do it. Yeah, turn off IM because you'll get a ton more work done that way. And that's Big Eat Ball, and there's the link for the Rump Shakers as well, if you're interested. So take any questions if you have them. Yeah.
Just curious if the multiplayer or the single player mode has been more popular.
It's weird. The multiplayer, we bring that to the shows more often because we got the seats also, the funny seats that vibrate. And so, yeah, if you get a group of people down for that, they love it. They're howling and screaming, and it's like a good co-op game, and they're loving that. But the single player is pretty different, and so it's like how long can you maintain that kind of enthusiasm? So the single player is like many hours long and more puzzly. So it's almost like two different crowds. Yeah. We've taken some comic book shows, we've taken both, like two TVs, going at once, and usually if you can get somebody else to kind of try that out, give them some headphones and they're really kind of get into it, but it's not as easy to demo in a crazy, show where everything's going on and your attention is getting lost. So that's why I think, yeah, probably the party modes are probably easier to demo because they're quick to get in. You get to to have something fun, and then, yeah, something's always happening that's crazy. Yeah. Cool. Thank you, guys.